When my older brother destroyed my business out of jealousy, he tried to blame it on me, saying I was always the golden child and then I used to believe that success, when earned through hard work, would be enough to keep people around me happy. That if I built something from the ground up, my family would be proud, my brother would be supportive, and life would be, if not perfect, at least fair. I was wrong. The moment I became more successful than Jake, my older brother, was the moment everything shifted. I started Elevate Marketing Solutions when I was 24, fresh out of college with nothing but an idea and a lot of ambition. I had spent years working on marketing strategies for startups, pouring every dollar I made into growing my own agency. 3 years later, Elevate was thriving. My company had a steady roster of clients, a growing team, and most importantly, a solid reputation. Jake, on the other hand, had taken a different path. He had once been the gifted one in the family, the kid who could charm his way into anything. He went to business school, convinced everyone he was destined for greatness, and then nothing. Failed startups, bad investments, and a long list of jobs he either quit or was fired from. My parents, Diane and Mark, always had an excuse for him. He just needs to find the right opportunity. He's got so much potential. He just hasn't landed in the right place yet. He's your brother, Natalie. Maybe you could help him out. And that's how it started. A few months ago, my mother called me, her voice dripping with carefully measured concern. "Sweetheart, I was just talking to Jake, and he's feeling really lost right now. You know how much he admires you. He was wondering if there's any way he could work with you, just to get back on his feet." I hesitated. A lifetime of experience told me that working with Jake was a bad idea. He never liked taking direction, and he certainly wouldn't take it from me. But my parents had always been soft on him, and if I said no, I knew what would happen. My mother's voice would take on that disappointed edge, my father would act like I was being selfish, and I would end up feeling like the bad guy. So, against my better judgment, I agreed. Jake joined Elevate Marketing Solutions as a consultant. I didn't need a consultant, but I figured I could let him shadow me, maybe give him a project or two to handle. If nothing else, it would keep my parents happy. What I didn't realize was that I had just handed my biggest enemy the keys to everything I had built. At first, things seemed fine. Jake showed up on time, sat in on meetings, and even took notes. For a brief moment, I let myself believe that maybe this would work out. Maybe he really wanted to learn. Then, the small things started. He began questioning my decisions in front of the team. "I don't get why you're focusing on small business clients. You should be aiming for the big leagues." When I explained that I had intentionally built my brand to support startups and mid-sized companies, he scoffed. "Natalie, you're thinking too small. That's why you're not growing fast enough." Not growing fast enough? My company had doubled in size in the last 2 years. But Jake never cared about facts. He cared about control. Then, he started charming my employees. Jake had always been good at reading people, knowing exactly how to get into their heads. One by one, I noticed how my team started hesitating around me. They weren't outright disrespectful, but something felt different. It wasn't until Lauren, my best friend and operations manager, pulled me aside that I realized why. "He's making people second-guess you," she said bluntly. "He keeps dropping little comments about how you're too controlling and don't trust your own team." I felt my stomach drop. "Are you serious?" Lauren nodded. "I overheard him talking to Adam yesterday. He said, and I quote, 'Natalie's great, but she doesn't know how to delegate. That's why she's burning out.'" Burning out? I wasn't burning out. I was running a company. But Jake was planting seeds of doubt, and that was more dangerous than outright sabotage. And then came the clients. At first, I didn't think much of it. A few deals falling through here, and there wasn't unusual. But when 2 major clients suddenly pulled out without explanation, I knew something was wrong. I called one of them, an old client named Lisa, to ask why. There was a long pause before she finally said, "Jake told us your company was going through some instability. We didn't want to take the risk." I almost dropped the phone. Jake was actively sabotaging my business from the inside. That night, I confronted him at my office. "You've been spreading lies about me," I said, cutting straight to the point. Jake, sitting casually in my chair, smirked. "Lies? Or the truth?" I clenched my fists. "You told clients I was unstable. You made my team question me. You're deliberately trying to destroy everything I built. He shrugged. I'm just giving people a different perspective. Not my fault they believe it. I could feel the rage boiling inside me, but I refused to let him see how much he had gotten under my skin. Why are you doing this? I demanded. His smirk disappeared, replaced by something darker. Because I'm tired of being in your shadow. I took a step back, shocked. You think I put you in my shadow? Jake, I worked my ass off for this. You had just as many chances as I did. And yet, you're the golden child. He snapped. Mom and Dad won't admit it, but they've always held me to a different standard. I mess up once, and it's a disaster. You screw up, and it's she's just learning. I laughed bitterly. You think I haven't had to fight for everything? You think Mom and Dad favor me? They've spent our entire lives making excuses for you. Jake's jaw tightened, but he didn't deny it. That's when I realized this wasn't just about jealousy. He wanted revenge, and he wasn't finished yet. By the time I left the office that night, I knew two things. Jake had already done serious damage. He wasn't going to stop. I should have fired him then and there, but I hesitated. He was my brother. A part of me wanted to believe he could still change. That was my mistake. Because the next morning, I walked into my office and found a disaster waiting for me. Jake had planted evidence, false financial records that made it look like I had been stealing from the company, and he was about to use them to ruin me completely. I should have trusted my instincts. I should have known Jake wouldn't stop at planting doubts and stealing clients. But I still underestimated just how far he was willing to go. Because the moment I walked into my office that morning, I knew he wasn't just trying to make me look bad. He was trying to destroy me completely. Lauren was already there when I arrived, standing near my desk with a look of pure panic on her face. Natalie, you need to see this. I followed her gaze and felt my stomach twist. My desk was covered in printed financial records, or, at least, something that looked like financial records. Some of the documents had my signature forged at the bottom, approving expenses and fund transfers I had never even seen before. Transactions had been altered, numbers inflated. There was even an email chain printed out, supposedly from me, approving undisclosed bonuses to accounts that didn't exist. This isn't real, I breathed, flipping through the pages. I never signed these. Lauren swallowed hard. I know that. But someone is making it look like you did. There was only one person who could have done this. And right on cue, Jake walked in. Natalie, he said, shaking his head like he was disappointed in me. We need to talk. He had the nerve to act like he was the one in control. I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. What the hell is this, Jake? He sighed, crossing his arms. I wanted to handle this privately, but, Natalie, you've been mismanaging funds. I found these documents in your files this morning. Mismanaging? I nearly choked. Lauren looked between us, wide-eyed. She knew what was happening. Jake turned to her. I know this is hard to hear, but Natalie's been making some really reckless financial decisions. And now the company is at risk. I laughed, actually laughed, because I couldn't believe the audacity. You think you can frame me for fraud in my own company? I snapped. Jake didn't flinch. He just shrugged, his voice calm. It's not fraud if it's true. Jake didn't waste time. Within hours, the rumor was everywhere. By lunchtime, my employees were whispering behind my back. I caught snippets of conversation as I walked by, my own team questioning whether I had actually been stealing from the company. I called Adam, my business partner, hoping he would back me up. You know me, I told him. You know I wouldn't do this. There was a long pause. Then Adam sighed. I want to believe that, Natalie. But Jake, he has paperwork. He's saying you've been making unauthorized transfers for months. I gripped my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. You seriously believe him over me? Adam hesitated. I just need to know the truth. If there's an explanation, tell me. The explanation is that he's lying. I shouted. He set me up, Adam. Do you think I would risk everything I've built? Another long silence. I don't know, he admitted. Let's just take a step back and figure this out. But I already knew what was happening. Jake was winning. He had planted the seed of doubt, and now it was growing, infecting everyone around me. As if the day couldn't get worse, my phone rang that evening. My mother. I already knew what was coming. Natalie, Diane said in a quiet, disappointed tone. We need to talk about what's going on at your company. I closed my eyes. Mom, before you say anything, please listen to me. Jake is lying. Honey, he showed us the documents. Of course he did. I didn't sign those, I said firmly. I would never. Natalie, please. She cut me off. Your father and I are trying to understand how this happened. Jake said you've been under a lot of stress, that maybe you made some mistakes without realizing it. I felt like I was going to be sick. Mom, listen to yourself. You actually think I stole from my own company? She hesitated. We just don't know what to think right now. And that was enough. That hesitation was enough to break me. It didn't matter that I had built my company from nothing. It didn't matter that I had always been responsible, always tried to be the daughter they could rely on. The second Jake cried wolf, they believed him. I hung up the phone, shaking with rage. Lauren found me in my office a few minutes later, her expression tense. We need to do something. I know, I said. We need proof. The real kind. Jake had fabricated documents, but he wasn't as smart as he thought. He had to have left a trail somewhere, something that would expose him. Lauren nodded. Then let's dig. We worked late into the night, going through everything. Every email, every financial record, every tiny detail that could lead us back to Jake's lies. And then, at 2 a.m., Lauren gasped. Oh my God. Natalie, look at this. I turned my chair toward her, and she pointed at her screen. Jake had been emailing our rival, Greg, for weeks. And in one of those emails, Greg had written back, once you get her out of the way, we can finalize the deal. My breath caught in my throat. Jake wasn't just trying to ruin my reputation. He was planning to take my company, and I was running out of time to stop him. The next morning, I walked into my office knowing one thing for certain. Jake was about to make his final move. Lauren and I had found the emails at 2 a.m., but we needed more. More proof. More leverage. If I confronted Jake now, he would just deny it. So I stayed quiet, played along, pretended I was losing, even as I was one step ahead. I didn't have to wait long. By noon, I got a message from Adam. Emergency meeting. Boardroom. Now. I knew what was coming. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked in. Inside, the room was packed. Adam sat at the head of the table, looking uncomfortable. A few senior employees were there, people I had worked with for years, people who were suddenly uncertain about me. And then there was Jake, standing by the window, arms crossed like he had already won. Take a seat, Natalie, Adam said. I sat, keeping my expression neutral. All right, what's going on? Adam cleared his throat. We've reviewed the financial records, the ones Jake found, and it doesn't look good. I said nothing. Let them talk. Jake pushed away from the window and sighed dramatically. Look, Nat, this isn't easy for me. You're my sister, and I wanted to believe there was another explanation. But the numbers don't lie. You've been moving company funds into untraceable accounts, and it's hurting the business. I stared at him. You expect me to believe you actually care about this business? A flicker of irritation crossed his face, but he recovered quickly. This isn't about me, it's about Elevate. The board needs stability. Investors need trust. And right now, your name is tied to fraud. You need to step down, for the good of the company. Step down. That was his plan. Jake had manipulated the board, our employees, even our parents, all to push me out. He had spent weeks planting seeds of doubt, setting traps, falsifying documents, and now he was ready to take my place. I folded my hands in front of me and smiled. Okay, I said. I'll step down. Silence. Jake blinked. Wait, what? The boardroom shifted uncomfortably. Lauren's eyes widened. Adam hesitated. Natalie, are you sure? I nodded. I just have one condition. Jake smirked. Name it. I leaned forward. You sign a legal statement taking full accountability for this company after I leave. Every financial decision, every client contract, everything falls on you. No blaming me if things go wrong. For the first time, Jake hesitated. He hadn't expected me to agree so easily. That seems extreme, he said carefully. I just want to fix things, not create legal complications. I tilted my head. If you're innocent, what's the problem? He glanced at Adam, who was watching him closely. The board murmured among themselves. I pressed on. You spent weeks telling everyone I was unfit to run this company. So take full control, Jake. Sign the contract and prove you can do it. The room fell silent. Jake knew he couldn't do it. He didn't want control. He wanted to sell the company to Greg and walk away rich. If he signed, he would have to answer for every shady move he had made. I saw the panic flicker in his eyes. You know what? He forced a chuckle. Let's not rush things. Maybe we should. I cut him off. Or maybe we should talk about your emails with Greg. His face went white. The room went dead silent. Lauren, bless her soul, was ready. She pulled up the emails on the big screen before Jake could react. From Jake to Greg. Once you get her out of the way, we can finalize the deal. A murmur of shock and disbelief spread through the room. Adam's face darkened. Jake, what is this? Jake panicked. This is fake. She's trying to frame me. I crossed my arms. Oh, then let's check your sent folder, right now. Pull up your emails in front of everyone. His jaw clenched. He knew he was caught. Adam exhaled sharply, rubbing his forehead. Jesus, Jake. You were trying to sell the company? Jake tried to salvage it. I was doing it for the good of Elevate. Natalie was reckless. She was ruining everything. I was just making sure we had a safety net. I stood. No. You were trying to get rid of me, just like you always wanted. My voice stayed calm, but inside, I was seething. You stole clients. You falsified financial documents. You manipulated our parents. And now you want to act like you were saving the company. Jake snapped. You were always the favorite, he yelled. Mom and Dad always gave you everything. You got the business, the respect. Everything I should have had. I blinked. Are you serious? His voice shook with rage. You don't get it, Natalie. I failed over and over while you got to be the golden child. Do you know how humiliating that is? I stared at him. For years, I had tried to be understanding, had tried to be patient, to include him, to be a good sister. But he had never seen me as his sister. He had only ever seen me as the person standing in his way. And I was done. The board meeting ended with Jake storming out, but the damage was done. Adam immediately called our lawyers to handle the next steps. Jake's access was revoked. His false accusations? Cleared. My parents called me that night, apologizing, saying they should have believed me, that they didn't know Jake was capable of this. But I didn't have the energy to comfort them. I was exhausted. Jake had spent months trying to burn down everything I built. And for a while, he almost succeeded. But the difference between us? I fight for what I build. Jake? He just destroys. I wanted to believe it was over. That exposing Jake's scheme and kicking him out of my company would be enough to stop him. But deep down, I knew better. Jake wasn't the kind of person who accepted defeat. He was the kind of person who doubled down when he lost. And this time, he wasn't just trying to take my business. He was trying to take me down with it. The next few days were eerily quiet. No phone calls from Jake, no attempts to get back into the office. I thought maybe, for once, he had finally given up. Then the headlines hit. CEO of Elevate Marketing Solutions under investigation for financial misconduct. Industry insiders claim Natalie stole from her own company. Former employees speak out. The toxic leadership of Natalie. I stared at my screen in shock. Jake had gone to the press. He couldn't take my company, so he was destroying my reputation instead. Lauren burst into my office, breathless. Have you seen it? I swallowed hard. Yeah. She slammed her phone onto my desk. Look at this. Someone's leaking fake stories about you. They're saying you bullied employees, falsified records. Basically, everything Jake actually did, but they're blaming you for it. My head pounded. Where the hell is this coming from? Lauren scrolled through her phone. Anonymous sources. But it's obvious. It's Jake. He's feeding these lies to the press. It wasn't just news articles. Clients started pulling out. Potential hires stopped responding to emails. And worst of all, people believed it. Even after everything I had done, after all the work I put into this company, All it took was a few well-placed lies to make people doubt me. The legal counterattack. I wasn't going to let him win. I called Vanessa, my lawyer, and immediately set up a meeting. Vanessa was sharp, no nonsense, and didn't take crap from anyone. She showed up at my office that afternoon, already on the offensive. "First things first," she said, setting down her briefcase. "We're suing for defamation." I blinked. "That fast?" She gave me a look. "Natalie, he's actively sabotaging your career. If we don't get ahead of this, he'll do real damage." I exhaled slowly. "Okay, what do we need to do?" Vanessa pulled out a folder. "We need evidence. Proof that Jake was the one spreading these stories. We have the emails between him and Greg, but we need more. Something that directly ties him to these leaks." Lauren perked up. "I might have something." She grabbed her laptop and started typing. After a minute, she turned the screen toward us. "Jake's been using a burner email to send tips to journalists. But he's sloppy. Look at this. He logged into the fake account from his personal IP address last night." I leaned in, reading the data. It was him. He wasn't even trying to cover his tracks anymore. Vanessa grinned. "This is perfect. We can take this straight to court." But I wasn't satisfied with just suing him. I wanted to expose him publicly, the same way he tried to expose me. If Jake wanted to use the media against me, I was going to turn it against him. I called one of the biggest business reporters in the industry, Rachel Carter. She had a reputation for being ruthless with the truth. I told her everything. I sent her the emails, the forged documents, and the proof that Jake was behind the smear campaign. She didn't hesitate. "Let's do an interview," she said. "On record." I agreed. That night, I sat across from Rachel in a brightly lit studio, cameras rolling, and told the entire story. How Jake had sabotaged my company from the inside. How he had falsified documents to frame me. How he had gone to the press with lies after being exposed. And most importantly, I showed proof. When the interview aired, it blew up. Social media exploded. People started questioning Jake's motives. Some of the clients who had dropped me called to apologize. And just like that, the narrative shifted. I wasn't the villain anymore. Jake was. The next morning, Jake showed up at my office. He was furious. "You think this is over?" he spat, slamming his hands on my desk. "You think you can just humiliate me like that?" I didn't flinch. "You humiliated yourself." His face twisted. "You had to go public? You had to turn the whole industry against me?" I leaned back in my chair. "That's funny coming from you. Wasn't that your plan for me?" He gritted his teeth. "This isn't fair, Nat." I scoffed. "You want to talk about fair? You tried to frame me for fraud. You tried to steal my company. You convinced our own parents that I was the problem." For the first time, Jake looked unsure. "You've always had everything," he muttered. "I just wanted my chance." I exhaled. "Jake, you could have had a chance. But instead of building something, you tried to take mine." Silence. Then, finally, he let out a bitter laugh. "You really think you won?" He shook his head. "I'll be back, Nat. You can't keep me down forever." I met his eyes. "You've already lost, Jake. You just don't know it yet." He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. And I knew, deep down, Jake had nothing left. With the lawsuit moving forward, Jake became radioactive in the industry. No one wanted to hire him. No one wanted to work with him. Even Greg, the guy Jake tried to sell my company to, cut ties with him completely. As for me, I was stronger than ever. My company recovered. My employees stood by me. And my reputation? Restored. Jake thought he could take me down. But all he did was prove I was unstoppable. Jake was finished. At least, that's what I wanted to believe. I had exposed his lies, restored my reputation, and watched as he lost everything. No one in the industry would touch him. Even our parents, who had always made excuses for him, finally saw him for what he was. But deep down, I knew. Jake wasn't the type to walk away quietly. And I was right. Because he had one final move left. It started with a phone call. An unknown number. Normally, I would ignore it. But something told me to pick up. "Hello?" A pause. Then, his voice. "Natalie." I clenched my jaw. "Jake." He sighed. "Look, I know I messed up. I got caught up in things. but I'm in a bad place right now. I need help. I exhaled slowly. Help? I have nothing left, he said, his voice strained. No job, no money. Mom and Dad barely speak to me. I just need a fresh start. A fresh start. After everything he had done? And why exactly are you calling me? I asked, my tone flat. I was thinking maybe I could come back to Elevate. Just in a small role. I'll work my way up. I swear I won't screw it up this time. I almost laughed. He still thought he could manipulate me. Let me get this straight, I said. You tried to destroy me, steal my company, ruin my reputation, and now you want a job? Jake hesitated. I just need a second chance. I leaned back in my chair. You had a second chance, Jake, and a third, and a fourth, and every single time, you used it to hurt me. He was quiet for a moment. Then his voice changed. The fake remorse disappeared. You really think you're better than me, don't you? He spat. I stayed silent. You were always the perfect one, he continued, his voice rising. The golden child. Mom and Dad still love you, even after you humiliated me. But me? They look at me like I'm some kind of failure. I closed my eyes. Jake, that's not my fault. You did this to yourself. Bullshit, he snapped. You made them turn on me. You turned everyone against me. And there it was. He didn't regret what he did. He just hated that he lost. I inhaled deeply. Jake, we're done. Don't call me again. His voice turned cold. You'll regret this. Click. I stared at my phone for a long moment. Jake had lost everything. And now, he was desperate. And desperate people were dangerous. A week later, I was working late when Lauren burst into my office, her face pale. You're not going to believe this. She shoved her phone in front of me. A news article. Former CEO Jake exposes secrets of Elevate marketing. Claims company is built on lies. I scanned the article. My blood boiled. Jake had done an interview with some bottom-tier news outlet, painting himself as the real victim. He said I was a fraud, that I had manipulated people into believing he was the villain, that Elevate was built on shady deals. All lies, but lies that some people would believe. He's trying to drag you down with him, Lauren muttered. I exhaled sharply. Yeah, but he just made his biggest mistake. Lauren raised an eyebrow. Which is? He went on record. I called Vanessa. She was already on it. Perfect, she said when I explained. This is exactly what we needed. Needed? I frowned. He's spreading more lies about me. Exactly, Vanessa said. And now we have a clear-cut case for defamation. See, before, Jake had been hiding behind anonymous sources. He had been sneaky. But now? He put his name on the accusations. That meant we could sue the hell out of him and win. The next day, I filed a defamation lawsuit against him. This time, there was no escape. The lawsuit destroyed what little hope Jake had left. His fake story unraveled in court. The emails, the forged documents, the proof that he had been lying for months. It all came out. When the judge ruled in my favor, Jake sat there in complete shock. For once in his life, he couldn't talk his way out of it. The court ordered him to pay damages, and even though he was broke, that ruling followed him everywhere. His name was poison. No one wanted to hire him. No one wanted to associate with him. And for the first time, Jake was truly alone. A month later, I got a text from my mom. Mom, Jake left town. No one knows where he is. I stared at the message for a long time. Then, finally, I responded. Me, I hope he figures himself out. I didn't feel happy about it. I didn't feel sad either. I just felt done. For years, I had carried the weight of my family's expectations. I had tried to be the understanding sister, the one who forgave, the one who made things right. But Jake? He never wanted to be saved. And finally, I was done trying. Elevate thrived. I thrived. The damage Jake had done? Reparable. My name? Restored. And my business? Stronger than ever. One evening, Lauren and I sat in my office, drinking wine, looking out at the city skyline. You ever think about what would have happened if Jake never came into the company? She asked. I smirked. Yeah, I probably wouldn't have lost half my sanity. She laughed. But maybe it was a good thing. Now, You know exactly what you're capable of. I thought about that. She was right. I had survived. I had fought back. And in the end, I won.